So welcome to this week's Optimum Health Clinic Facebook Live. And the first thing I wanted to say is you may have seen on our Facebook page that a bunch of the team at the Optimum Health Clinic are going to be doing a fundraiser on the 2nd of July. We are going to be doing Go Ape, which is a high ropes course in London. And I think at the time of doing this video, there's about 15 or 16 of the Optimum Health Clinic practitioners and support staff that are going to be doing it. Obviously, if you're based in North London, we're doing it in Alexandra Park, you're more than welcome to come along and cheer us on, laugh, I guess, might be one of the other options. But more importantly, if you want to sponsor us, obviously that would be great. And it all is part of supporting the randomized controlled trial, which we are in the process of doing with the University of Surrey. In fact, there will be some updates on where we are with that project in the coming few months. And if you care about the OHC approach, you care about it being made available to more people, then supporting our research project is crucial to that. And you can sponsor us, putting ourselves through a level of fear and suffering, which I'm sure will bring great pleasure to some of our patients, but also it's for a great cause. So this week, I wanted to talk about being a realist with a positive attitude. Whether we're being positive, negative, realistic, obviously partly depends upon our character, our backgrounds, and how we tend to approach the world, but it also has implications for the recovery path. Something you may have heard me say before is that I'm not a big fan of positive thinking. What goes up in a way which is unsupported tends to come crashing back down again. So if you are constantly trying to convince yourself that you're further down the recovery path than you really are, if you're trying to make things better than they are, you tend to get feedback, and that feedback tends to come in the case of being a crash or a relapse or whatever. Or what happens is you're always living at the edge of the level of recovery that you're at, which means that, one of the crucial things to building up energy reserves is you create more energy than you spend each day. And if each day you're basically using up all of the energy that you're creating, then you don't build reserves, you don't build stamina. So positive thinking, the danger can be that we're always slightly maxed out in terms of where we really are. So being a realist is helpful in the sense that we see things more honestly and more accurately. So we are, sometimes something will come up and in our heart, we want to do it. But really, it's not yet where we are on the recovery path. And actually, we need to say no. Being a realist allows us to do that. Having said that, if you're just being a realist and you have no sense of hope or optimism or potential for the future, then life can feel a bit flat. Life can just feel a bit like you're going through the steps and the necessary process, but there's not a sense of enthusiasm or positivity for the future. I also want to say a few words around being negative. Ultimately, if we have a negative attitude to our recovery and our process, we'll tend not to invest our emotion, our heart, and our time and our resources in things that might help us, because why would we do that if we don't believe that things are going to change? Having said that, sometimes we have a day or a few days or a week where we need to be allowed to feel the emotions and the frustration of the situation that we're in. In fact, this came up a couple of times today with patients of mine, that they were saying, I had a period where I was feeling almost depressed, or I was feeling kind of hopeless, and I was having to fight to not feel that. And my guidance was actually to give themselves permission to feel that. Sometimes it's totally appropriate to let yourself feel sad, hurt, miserable, frustrated. You don't want to live there, but it's okay to go there. It's okay to visit there on holiday sometimes. Feeling like you want to give up for an hour or a day or whatever is not the same as giving up entirely. And sometimes actually it's a helpful way of taking some of the pressure off ourselves. And sometimes the deepest relaxation comes when, for an evening or a day or whatever, we let ourselves give up and just, veg out on the sofa and chill out and sleep and rest. That can be immensely helpful. So there are times to be positive, because positivity gives us a sense of potential and kind of joy and excitement towards the future. We also want to be a realist. We want to see things as they are. And sometimes we want to be allowed to be negative. So each of these places has a place. And we can tend to think that positive thinking is good, quote unquote negative thinking is bad, and being realistic is, who wants to be a realist? And I would say that they all have value. They all have an appropriate place. Where you want to live, like your kind of cruising altitude, you want to be a realist. But you want to be a realist with a positive attitude to life. You want to be a realist that sees things as they are. You're honest with yourself about what you can do, what you can't do, what your limits are at this point in time. But you also have hope for the future. You have a sense of positivity for the future. You have a sense that there's the capacity and the potential for things to change, and you're actively engaged in and committed towards that process. And it reminds me of something that I've spoken about before. A similar way that I used to phrase this way of looking at it is I used to talk about the C word and the S word. And they're not what you're probably thinking. So the C word being commitment. You have to be committed and you have to take action and be proactive towards things changing. But you also need surrender. And you also need to be able to let go and accept and to surrender to where you are. And if we're someone that tends towards being a very committed person, like perhaps part of the reason why we burnt out was because we're constantly trying to drive and strive to push things forwards, we naturally go towards commitment and we struggle with surrender. If we're someone that tends to be someone that just kind of lets life happen to us and we tend to just over-surrender, we need to build more muscle, and it literally is like any muscle, it grows through use. We need to build the muscle towards commitment. So the same here in terms of whether you're overly focused on the kind of being positive, you're overly caught in the negative, or you're just being realistic, but there's a sense of kind of perhaps hopelessness that seeps into your realism, that you probably need more balance. So what you may need is, if you're caught in the negative, to focus more on the positive. If you're focused on always the positive and you don't let yourself feel the feelings of the quote unquote negative, to sometimes let yourself feel the emotions and the feelings that are there. So all have their place, but my guidance is see things as they are, but maintain a sense of positivity and optimism about the future. But make sure that positivity and optimism is built on something real. So the positivity and optimism is not built on this kind of blue sky thinking it's all going to get better for some reason, but you've got a plan and you're actively engaged in that plan. And that then gives a sense of realness to the future. So just looking at some of the comments. Hi, Tracy. Hi, John, Hillary, Jane, Kath. If you've got questions, I've got a couple of minutes if you want to post some questions. Michaela's saying, I had to stay physically working 12-hour days and went out the week of my birthday, did 5 hours work this morning and then surrendered. I overcommit to the point of exhaustion. Balance. Yeah, I think that's a challenge that a lot of people can have. And at least if you can see it, then it's a pattern that you can see. You don't have to be it. It becomes easier to break that pattern. But also, and I think another way, Michaela, to think about this is if it's like a pendulum. So if you're too far to positive, you probably need to swing to feel some of the emotions of the other side. If you're constantly being a realist, you need to be challenged to see the potential for things to change in the future. So it's helpful to have the kind of the self-awareness to see where we are. And whenever we're too strong in one position, nearly always there's a period of balance required to bring us back to a place of equilibrium. Janice is saying it's tough to stay positive after 20 years, and I think that's true. I think, as I say, positivity needs to be built on substance. So it's kind of, that's a whole bigger piece here in terms of understanding why you are where you are. But if you're not working with one of the team here, I would definitely explore that. If you are, then it's always helpful to re-question kind of progress and where we are to make sure that all the right pieces are in place. Because maintaining positivity without a proven or about a path you believe in, I think is hard, because it's not built on something that has substance. Good. All right. So I hope that's been helpful. I may not be doing the Facebook Live next week. I'm in US West Coast, but I may be able to do it depending upon my meetings and my schedule there. So if I'm not here next week, I will talk to you in 2 weeks, and hopefully I will be able to find a window next week. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye for now.